The next item, I think, is the legislative report. Ms. Pearson, there you are. Members, this is still in file 4, but it's 4A, and you'll notice a bill summary as part of this. Ms. Pearson. No. Now try. Nope.
Let's try this again.
Okay, you got it.
Okay, good morning. Just a quick update today. I'll start off by orienting you to what's going on with the legislative calendar. The legislature is currently in spring recess. It's returning to session on April 1st, which is next Monday. They're at the tail end of budget hearings and beginning to shift focus to holding Freudian. Probably some beer hearings too, but bill hearings in the various policy committees that they've established.
You know what the first legislative session was referred to in shorthand, don't you? The legislature of 1,000 drinks, famously made by a legislator who said, let's go out and get some drinks, and the reporters reported on it.
Well, there are a number of deadlines at the beginning of May for all bills to move out of these policy committees, and they need to do so in order to move forward for consideration or vote by the full legislature. So I'm busy tracking a number of bills. You have a list of them in your board packet, and many of them are being scheduled for hearing as early as next week in the Water Parks and Wildlife Committee and also in the Senate Natural Resources and Water Committees.
Are there some that jump out at you for
I will get into that,
great.
yes. I did want to mention that as the result of special elections recently, the chair of the Assembly Water Parks and Wildlife Committee, Ben Waso, has moved on into the Senate, and he has been replaced in his chairmanship by Anthony Rendon from Lakewood, which is near Long Beach. Since our February council meeting, there were 2 informational hearings on the topic of the water bond. The first was a joint hearing by the Senate Finance and Governance Committee and the Senate Natural Resources and Water Committee. The second was held only by the Senate Natural Resources Committee. And there were a variety of materials presented at both hearings. I've included 2 useful background reports in your board packet, just FYI. They were prepared by Dennis O'Connor, who's the principal consultant for Senate Natural Resources and Water, and I found them very useful. I thought that you might as well. So back to the topic of bills. Like I said, there's a complete list in your board packet. I'm continuing to analyze many of them as they change. They're amended over the next few weeks. The top of my list for tracking would be SB 735 from Senator Lois Wolk, one of our Delta legislators. It's currently scheduled for hearing in the Senate Natural Resources and Water Committee for April 9th. This bill, which I also talked about at our last meeting, deals with locally prepared habitat conservation plans and natural communities conservation plans in the Delta. Both types of plans are a mechanism for seeking endangered species take coverage for various development and infrastructure needs in the local area. Specifically, this bill by Senator Wolk seeks to exempt all projects under those plans from consistency with Delta Plan policies. The full impacts of the bill are really unknown right now. The language is somewhat vague, and the number of projects that could be exempted from the Delta Plan are seemingly limitless because it includes both current and future habitat conservation plans and NCCPs. The author's office has indicated that they're considering some amendments to narrow that exemption, and we are in conversation with them. We want to better understand why they feel that there's a need for this bill and whether we can work through the details. But for now, the bottom line is the bill would exempt a major category of local actions from Delta Stewardship Council oversight, and so I'm going to continue to watch that one very carefully, and I will keep the executive officer and the chair apprised of new developments. That's all I have for today. Are there any questions?
There was a solace bill that was mentioned, I think it was yesterday, that popped up. Can you explain that one?
Sure.
We haven't yet seen the formal bill, but it raised some interesting questions.
I think you're referring to AB 426. This would be a bill related to water transfers and place of use.
Right.
Yes, we are currently analyzing that bill. In fact, I'm getting some help from our legal interns on that. And I don't know if they're planning to give a report after this, but Essentially, what it looks like is that this bill would exempt from State Water Board review certain types of interbasin water transfers, and instead those water transfers would have to meet certain criteria and then notify the State Board that they were about to occur. So I'm also analyzing that to understand whether it has an impact on what we're interested in.
The first reaction to it was an attempt to convert allegedly promised water in contracts that has never been received, has never been used, and by the terms of the contract today are not legally promised, into water that may be captured and sold for profit elsewhere by the individuals involved, correct? That's what we thought it was.
That's a concern. The way I understand it, and I'm no water rights or water transfer expert, is that under the terms of this bill, people would be able to transfer up to their contract amount or up to their permit amount rather than their perfected or demonstrated use amount. So that's a concern.
Mr. Fiorini.
Jessica, I just wanted to affirm the inclusion in the packet of the extra information, the report that the Senate committees received on California's debt condition. As you receive reports like that, and I just want to encourage you to pass them along. It was very interesting, very helpful to those of us that weren't able to attend the committee hearing. And I thought especially the comparison of the top 10 states in terms of debt, we call it debt ratio. Pretty interesting stuff.
Good.
As we consider a water bond in the future. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay. Any questions, members? Questions? Okay. All right. Thank you, Ms. Pearson.